USDR and Department of Agriculture people for tweets about Clayton, and we were overwhelmed with contributions. Seriously. The affection and the respect for this man is stunning, but it is not at all surprising for any of us who have had the privilege of working with him. So, let me share with you some of the comments that came through the tweets. I think that Ellen Terpstra certainly captured Clayton's effect on those around him. She said, Clayton inspired his own team and the other side in his infectious enthusiasm for engagement on contentious issues. Several of our colleagues spoke of his uncanny ability to bridge differences with deals that proved their worth. Whether it was semiconductors with Japan, your friend Mike Smith remembered that one, GATT accession for Spain and Portugal, anti-dumping CVD application with Canada, soybeans with the EC. But his contributions to the overall system were even greater. Dick Cunningham wrote, without Ambassador Yeutter, there would have been no Uruguay round, and thus no World Trade Organization. And besides all that, no one in the world of trade is more fun to work with than Clayton. And I think everybody who's worked with him knows that one too. All of us have felt the kindness and personal warmth that he has for people of all stations. Susan Schwab recalls the president of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange showing this, quote, GS nothing baby ag negotiator around the Mercantile Exchange. And Chip Rowe recounts Clayton's insisting that he drive Chip home to his daughter's Christmas concert after they landed in D.C. after the negotiating session overseas. And so many of us have experienced his thoughtfulness in helping us to develop our own careers. Josh Bolton's tweet captures that. He said, a great mentor to generations of trade policy professionals, Clayton Yeutter taught me that the good guys can play offense. Now, of course, Clayton's judgment was not perfect. I benefited from a premature senior moment when he appointed me the assistant USDR for Asia and Pacific. No one bats 1,000, Clayton. But speaking of sports, the only time you would see the dark side of Clayton is if you mention some humiliation of the University of Nebraska on the gridiron. And we know there were very, very few of those, Clayton. So Clayton, we all owe you so much as an inspiration, as a mentor, and as a friend. So please accept this award as heartfelt reminder of that.
Second here to just compose myself to respond to that. Thank you so much, Peter. I was going to say to you that, gosh, when you work for me, we're not nearly as funny as you are now. Peter did a magnificent job back then, I must tell you, and he's done a magnificent job ever since. And I have to say to Ambassador Punk that, gosh, when you were with Hogan and Hartson, which is now Hogan Levels, our furniture wasn't so hot either, so I guess we decided to get out of there and move on. I wanted to say to Congressman Paulson, if he's still here, I got a chance to listen to you at the Italian Embassy the other night. You did a wonderful job. So my congratulations. Thank you to Congressman Kine for the very gracious comments as well. And then if any of the members of Congress or any or all of them are still around, I want to say to you, never, ever give up on the trade front, on supporting trade liberalization for the United States and for the world. And don't give up in the absence of the kind of bipartisanship that we ought to have. When I was USTR in the Reagan years, for those of you who can remember back that far, the Congress was in full control of the Democratic Party, and we got a lot done. So the answer is you got to figure out how to do it, and hopefully we'll get back to a lot more bipartisan cooperation in this country in the near future. And no speeches tonight. Most everybody in this room has sometime or other in the last 40 years heard me give speeches on trade policy or agricultural policy. And that's enough. So you don't get another one of them tonight. So basically I'm going to thank people this evening. And first of all, I want to thank the WITA board for giving me this wonderful honor. I will never in my lifetime receive an honor that means more to me than this one here tonight. So the members of the board, and then I want to thank my family, some of whom are here tonight. My first thank you, if she's watching from above, would be my late wife, Jean, who left us much, much too early. But who is responsible for my standing here tonight. Were it not for all of her sacrifices over a period of many, many years, I would not even begin to be standing here tonight. So, Jean, wherever you are. For my two oldest sons, the Nebraska roots were pretty deep, so Brent and Greg aren't here. They're still out in Nebraska. We didn't persuade them to come in tonight. But in my first family, my two youngest ones, my daughter Kim and my son Van, and my daughter-in-law Shelley, Van's wife, are here. And I'd like them to stand up because I want to talk to them about it. This is my opportunity to brag on my kids, so I'll take advantage of it. Don't stand, don't sit down. Stand up. I can barely see you out there, but I can tell you you're going to sit down. I wanted to talk a little bit about them because they illustrate the kind of world in which we live and the way we have to prepare our kids, it seems to me, to compete with the Chinas of the world or whoever may be out there, whether it be in international trade or anything else. And I wanted to give you just a little bit of their background. And I'll start with my daughter, Kim. Kim did her undergraduate work at the University of Nebraska, did an MBA at Georgetown, did a Master's of International Relations at Johns Hopkins. At the same time she was doing her MBA at Georgetown. Majored in Japanese studies, learned Japanese, went to Japan, spent 3 years working for Kodak in Japan when Kodak was still a viable institution, and then started having a family. And Kim's two children, one daughter and one son, are now in college, and they're both over in Switzerland at the moment, polishing up their French before they go on and continue their college education. Then I want to mention Shelley, my Van's wife, who's from the Chicago area. She's the non-Nebraskan in the crowd. Shelley was one of Bobby Knight's cheerleaders in the heyday of Indiana basketball. Did her undergraduate work there. Shelley and Van were high school sweethearts, college sweethearts, graduate school sweethearts. And then when Cargill sent Van to Fort Worth to run a feed processing facility, we decided that's going to make the difference. They're going to get married. And they did. And they did. Shelley went on and got her master's degree at Northwestern University. Van did his undergraduate work at Vanderbilt, did an MBA and a Master's in International Relations at the University of Chicago, joined Cargill, and spent his entire career with that fine agribusiness firm, including running their oilseed processing operations in Australia for about 5 years, now runs Cargill's Washington, D.C. office. That's enough on I'm sorry that my second wife, Christy, and my second family could not be here tonight. They were all tied up in family-related activities, but I've been certainly blessed by having all of them as a part of my life, too. That brings me up to 7 children. The last 3 we all did by international adoption. Victoria from Russia, who is now 17, Elena from Kazakhstan, who is now 15, and Olivia from Guatemala, or Guatemalteca, who is now 9. So, for the members of Congress who are here and will remember Strom Thurmond and some of the rest of you as well, I decided I'd try to match Strom or maybe we figured out that I now have a 50-year age range between my youngest and my oldest. So at any rate, enough of the family stuff. Ambassador Pomp did a great job of commenting about his experiences with USTR, and I don't want to duplicate all that. But I just want to say, in addition to that, because there's so many USTR alumni out here, and so many people out here who are just wonderful friends. I think half the audience worked for me at some time or other, either at USDA or USTR through the years. But I have to tell you that being U.S. Trade Representative in the second Reagan administration was my all-time favorite job in this world in a period of 60 years. And that's because of people like Peter Allgaier and a lot of other folks out here at USTR. The level of dedication that exists and the work ethic at USTR is just unmatchable. I used to pride myself on always being the first person in the office and the last person to leave, and wherever I was working. That became rather difficult at USTR because eventually you have to sleep. And it's pretty hard to match that at USTR, even though I tried. But that's a reflection of the dedication there. And for the Department of Agriculture people who might be here in the audience tonight, I have to say that I was enormously impressed by those folks as well. Lots of times we have a tendency to chastise the bureaucracy. I can tell you that I found the bureaucracy at USDA to be very responsive to the leadership that I sought to provide them and to be very professional in everything they did. So I appreciated my years at USDA very, very much as well. And finally, just to close all this off, I was a great believer in handling management, and I've had lots of management opportunities in both the private sector and the public sector over the past 60 years. But I always believed, as President Reagan did, that what you do if you're an outstanding manager or want to be an outstanding manager is you surround yourself with truly outstanding people and turn them loose. And that's what I did. And the fact is, there are a lot of people in this audience tonight who were turned loose as a result of that, and I'm proud of every one of you. And just to kind of put it all in perspective, I thought you might appreciate a little anecdote about which occurred on the very first day that I became USTR. And that was, I had flown from Switzerland. I was at the Chicago American Deal Exchange and flew from Switzerland back this direction, and the White House intercepted me on my way back to Chicago, and they come in and meet with President Reagan to talk about the USTR position. And when I left the office, Donald Reagan, who was Chief of Staff, said, sit down for a minute. So I sat down and chatted with him. He'd been CEO of Merrill Lynch, so I'd known him during my Chicago Merck days. And in about 5 minutes, the phone rang, and Don Reagan said to me, that was the president saying he wanted to move forward with my announcement as U.S. Trade Representative. That came rather suddenly and very quickly. And he said, he called Pat Buchanan in. Pat Buchanan, a name you will remember, was in charge of White House communications at that time. And he said, I want to announce this within the hour. Pat's going to draft up the press release. While he is doing so, you can take over Pat's office and you can make whatever phone calls you want to, whomever you want to call. So I did so, and I thought you'd appreciate this one little story. I decided to call my mother, who was out in Cozad, Nebraska, a little old town in central Nebraska, and I pointed out to her that I'd just been in to meet President Reagan. He was going to announce that I was joining his cabinet as U.S. Trade Representative, and I sort of waited for a hip hip hooray kind of thing. There was dead silence, and I don't know what's going on here. And finally she said, "How long do you have to do that job?" Nothing like a mother to bring me back there. I could tell you that. But to just wrap up that story and get off the stadium here, or the podium here, I still remember the message that Don Regan delivered to me immediately thereafter. It just stuck with me. As he walked me out of the White House, and he said to me as we left, "Your job is to go change the world." And thanks to the help of a lot of people here, we, not I, we changed the world.